Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you had a great break. I am so excited to introduce our next panel and moderator. The panel is on strategies for returning to work. And we have an incredible moderator here today, Kimberly Brown, the founder of Manifest Yourself, a leadership development company providing organizations with tailor-made solutions to engage, develop, and advance women and people of color. Kimberly's best-selling book, Next Move, Best Move, Transitioning into a Career You'll Love, was released in June 2021. I encourage you all to go check it out. And Kimberly is also a bi-weekly career columnist for New York Magazine's The Cut. Kimberly, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me and for the warm welcome. I am so excited to be with you here today. And we are going to talk about strategies for returning to work. We know that the journey to returning to work after a break can be challenging and overwhelming, regardless of your reason for being away. This session really aims to provide valuable insights and practical strategies from our panel of experts who are all amazing to help you navigate this smoothly. This is also a really great opportunity for our employers in the room to learn about creating more inclusive and supportive work environments for all returners. So we are going to bring our panelists to the room. We have Amy Manning, Hallie Johnson, and Karie Warfield. I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves, please. And we can kick it off with Amy.
Hi, guys. Amy Manning here. I'm the Global Director of Benefits for Pfizer, and I'm thrilled to be here to talk with you today.
Hi, guys. I'm Hallie Johnston, and I'm a director with Henry Schein, and very excited. And first and foremost, thank you to the Muse and the Fairy God Boss for putting such an amazing event together. And again, super proud to be with Henry Schein, who's a big sponsor for this event. I'm actually coming from a very different and kind of unique perspective. I've transitioned 3 different times in my short career. I started my professional career in the Army as a combat Black Hawk helicopter pilot. And for various reasons, one with the goal to be a mother, I decided to make the scary yet exciting decision to transition to corporate America. So I started in the financial industry, ended up having my first child, taking a break from work, and then re-entering into a different industry during the pandemic into the healthcare space with Henry Schein. So re-entering a different industry. And then my third break and re-enter was when I had my second child. So taking a break with Henry Schein and the support that they gave me and the strategies behind re-entering the organization once that happened. So very excited for all the questions today. Thank you.
And I am Karie Warfield. I am a client experience insight supervisor over at Achieve. And I also sit as the co-chair and resource coordinator of the Heroes Employee Resource Group, also at Achieve. So thank you all for having me here today.
Thank you so much. We are excited to have all of you here, and we look forward to having a really great discussion. We are going to aim to leave some time for Q&A and answer as many questions as possible. So let's jump right into our questions today. First, I want to ask all of you, what are the tangible steps or best practices that individuals can take to prepare for returning to work? Is it updating their skills, networking, job training programs? What would you feel they should be doing?
So I'll jump in, and for everyone on this call, I'm sure you're all very aware of LinkedIn, right? It's a great tool out there. There's the couple of options. You can have the standard, which I've always used. I've never paid to have the pro. I know some people have that and they love it. But LinkedIn these days is a great way for you not only to see what other roles are out there. There's a lot of job postings on LinkedIn itself. But for people to find you, whether it's a recruiter inside a company or it's a contract recruiter, there are people searching all of the time on LinkedIn for your skills and for things you're interested in. So I always give people the advice, go onto LinkedIn, have as many contacts as you can get, because the more contacts, the more searches you pop up in, and that's always great. And LinkedIn has really evolved. For those who haven't been on it for a little bit, there's a lot of actual posting. So you don't have to be a connection for someone. You can be a follower. And that tells people what you're interested in, what you care about. It really gives you a feel for a company that you might be interested in. Pretty much every CEO out there has got a LinkedIn account and they're posting. Your heads of HR are going to have a LinkedIn account. but the colleagues themselves will have LinkedIn information, right? So I know at Pfizer, we have Pfizer Proud. That's a hashtag that colleagues, just regular old colleagues all over the world will post to. So it gives you a really good feeling for what that community is into and what you might be interested in. So I say LinkedIn all the way, post on there, watch for jobs that you're liking. And if you don't see a job that you like, but you think a friend likes, you can refer it right to a friend right on LinkedIn. So I am not paid for that advertising, just to be clear, but that would be my starter for getting back into the workforce.
Awesome. Well, I'll jump in next. And Amy, thank you for the great insight. I'm actually going to respond more on the post LinkedIn and the skill updates. It's more focused on your plan for when you start day one with that organization. What is your plan? And so you're probably going to hear some terms from the military as we go through this, but the angles, allies, and advantages are 3 words that I want to focus on here. What is your angle? And you can closely relate that to what is your 30, 60, 90-day plan? What are your milestones for when you start that organization? A big follow-up to that is, who are the key players in your organization? There's your manager, there's the cross-functional partners that you're going to be working with, and then I like to say your tribe. So those that you're going to build those relationships with. And first plan of attack really should be what are the goals of your organization? What are the goals of your department? And what are the goals that your boss has for his team or her team and for yourself? And so if you can find the similarities and the congruency amongst those, that's gonna give you the answers of where your primary focus needs to be. And then secondly is really relationships. No matter what business you're in, there's a key aspect of relationships. So as you're meeting with those cross-functional partners, be a great listener. Find out what their goals are and determine where the similarities are between the two of you so that you guys can all collectively work together. And that's going to support you when you re-enter or start with a new organization, or as you grow within the organization that you're with.
So I think I took a little bit of a different approach to this question. I feel like this is a mental health focused approach too. So the first thing I would say is check in with yourself and have a real honest conversation with yourself about whether this is a ready to return to work type of situation or whether this is a necessity that you return to work. And if it's a ready to return to work type of situation, in that case, then it's a skills readiness challenge. And then by all means, take those steps like Amy was talking about, go into LinkedIn, update that resume, make sure that those soft skills that you're bringing to the table are the things that you have on there, and watch for that keyword matching, all those things that you find like tips by the dozen on the internet, right? But remember that if you are returning to work because it's just a necessity or you feel that it may be a necessity, then in that case, it's a mindset challenge. And in a mindset challenge, you have to look for your resources first, right? If you're not 100% sure that you are ready to return to work, then look at those community resources and see if there are other things that you can do to make up for that gap until you are ready to return. If you have a mountain of unsecured debt that's super overwhelming, look into those debt resolution programs like Achieve. Seek out ongoing mental health assistance. It's not just something that you need before you are ready to enter the workplace. It's something that you should have during the time that you're in the workplace. And whenever you're going through those big transitions in life, have that mental support partner along with you. And ask for help. Like, don't be afraid to ask others to support you on that journey. So watch the mental health part and know that there's a big proponent among people for aces in their places, right? Like, don't return to a job that you are absolutely not a good fit for. Find the time and those resources to back you up until you find the place that's meant for you.
Thank you so much. I love that we have 3 different approaches there so everyone can find what really correlates to where they are. So, when I'm doing career coaching and someone is returning to work, probably the number one thing people are worried about is the stigma that comes with having the absence. So, what are some effective strategies for overcoming the stigma and potentially discrimination that can sometimes be faced by individuals who are returning to work, especially when the absence is significant?
So my thought about that is, everyone's afraid of the unknown. So if you're starting back in the workforce and you have a gap in your resume or your time at work, it's always best to go with the truth. Now, that doesn't mean you have to tell everything about your reason you were gone. It's perfectly reasonable to say it was time for me to focus on family, or I had health concerns I needed to address, and then move forward to why now is a good time. And I think Karie's comments about get your head in the right place so you can answer that from a truly authentic place is the right way to go with that. But there are folks who, as you're talking through it, you're going to feel, okay, this person's a little nervous about that break. And it's okay to make a conversational point of, I don't anticipate having any future absences related to this or other things that start the conversation. Because again, it's getting to that unknown. They just want to make sure that it's not a situation that it isn't completely thought through from your end yet. Sometimes that's hard if you're going back specifically because you need to get back into the workforce because it's the right thing for your family. So doing that pre-work that Karie suggested is going to make that answer much less scary. With all that said, no one at any point should feel like an employer is discriminating against you, regardless of what that might be. So make sure if somebody is getting cute about, do you have young kids? Moms are always out. You're not going to be out any more than a young dad would be. Those kinds of things are fine to put it right back in their plate. So understand your rights as well as you're going through that. But honesty is always the best place to go.
So I'm going to jump in here. I want to focus on the professional brand. So whether you're starting with a new organization or returning, you have your brand. And my ask to everyone today is truly internalize what you want that to be, so that when you return, don't let anyone hinder your confidence or how you operate, and really focus on what is that. So no matter what you're doing day in and day out, operate with that in the back of your mind. So, for example, for me, again, if I'm going from no matter across my professional career, I've always wanted to be viewed from someone that is a strategic, reliable truth teller and who always gets the job done. So whether that's I'm a new mother and I'm coming back into the organization and I'm communicating how I'm going to ramp back up and get back to full speed of what that might be. But that's what it is. And there's a lot of time management in that and how you're going to ramp back up. I like to relate it again to the military. I was an aviator, so time on target is critical. You can't be late, can't be too early because it could disrupt the mission at hand. So a lot of that can translate into your corporate America or the work that you are doing today. And then there's 4 aspects that I think everyone should just hone in. And one of that is stick by your decisions, informed decisions, and have confidence in that. The other one is have intellectual curiosity. And that's a brave aspect, is be okay to ask questions to get yourself back up to speed faster. More often than not, somebody's already had to go against that challenge and they know the answer, and it's just helping you get up to speed quicker. A big piece, and I see this in a lot of organizations, is communication. And there's always an issue with silos, but communicating often. The last thing you want is to blindside a strategic partner that you're working with when you're moving forward as a team. And then I hit it on before previously, but nurturing those relationships and making sure that everyone is working towards a common goal.
Thank you so much. I know that is the number one question everyone is so nervous about. Before we jump to the next question, I just want to share, make sure you practice whatever your response is. So many times people expect for to get that question and kill it in the interview, but because you're nervous and you've never practiced your answer, you stumble through it. And if you're not confident in your response and why you're returning back to work, the employer will not be confident in hiring you. And it's generally going to be one of your first or second questions that you're going to be asked. So if you stumble in the first or second, it's going to be really hard to play the mental gymnastics in your brain to answer anything else for the rest of the interview. So practice is key there. So now we're going to switch gears and talk about the company. So what role do you feel that company policies play in supporting individuals who are returning to work? Is it creating welcome and inclusive spaces that support the culture regardless of the absence? And what changes, if any, do you feel should be made to better support this process?
So, Kimberly, if you don't mind, I'll field that one. First of all, there should be a process in place to start with. That process, along with its expectations, should be clear. It should be consistent. And if your company does not have those things in place, then step up. As I think it was Hallie said, be brave, be the change maker, right? Companies can start to support from the date of your hire. Train your recruiters, train your hiring leaders not to overemphasize the employment gaps, especially for things like taking care of kids, family members, supporting households, going back to school. Because if you remove the bias from the hiring process to begin with, that conversation that Kimberly is talking about isn't going to be as difficult from the receiving side as well. Then get the word out there to your front of line leadership. Not just housing it right in HR, right? Sure, HR can handle the processing and all those little nuances, but you need boots on the ground people so that your company processes are not some kind of best kept secret, right? You need that information out there to the people that are actually going to need to use it. So encourage leadership to destigmatize long-term absence by preparing employees before leaves occur. In that case, it might actually work as a retention benefit for your company, right? So before you lose that person to have to go transition to another company, if you have that conversation and they realize that it is normal for them to have a leave of absence, or it is normal for them to use that, disability time or whatever the case may be, then maybe you can retain them as a future employee and keep that return on investment that you took so long building in that relationship with them. And offer ongoing support with culture immersion. Provide in-depth information on how to get involved in your support groups, like your employee resource groups that can help your new hires to acclimate and build relationships, and above all else, just to feel heard.
So, Karie, so much there I want to comment on. First, I want to say absolutely believe in the leave process. I'm going a little off script, guys, in that, the only way you solve the wage gap is when everybody takes their parental leave, right? Anybody who has a child who has eligible parental leave needs to be taking that leave, right? So keep that out there, guys. But onboarding for any reason, whether it's a new hire or you're coming back from leave, can be bumpy, depending on what kind of resources your company has. Maybe your station isn't set up when you get there. Maybe you don't know how to find the conference room that everybody's in. All of these things can make you feel very like an outsider from the group, even if you're returning from a leave. You got to have the expectation that's going to be there for a little bit. And, as you get used to it, make sure that you, as other people are coming in, you can help with that a bit. With that said, there are lots of programs once you get onboarded that your company probably has for you. And it's overwhelming to start to look at those at your first 30 days, right? When it's really a finite period of time where you have to make those kind of key decisions. So look at the materials that's coming in the mail. Look at the materials. Make time every day that you're getting emails. You could be getting 4 or 5 different emails about this program or that program or welcome here. Give yourself the time to read through those. Some of those have hard and fast deadlines for you. But there's also programs like daycare assistance, daycare referrals that you should be taking part in. There are things like commuter benefits that can really take the pain out of some of commuting in some of the larger cities that you get tax breaks on and things like that. So take the time for that. And I wanted to speak a little bit about who's coming into the workforce now. The workforce traditionally had always been a triangle, right? With your senior leader up here and all of us little Indians down here. And that is really changing in corporate America specifically now. At Pfizer, we call it zigzag, right? So your career may not do this, it might do this, right? Which means you might have new hires who are coming in at a much older age. Definitely different programs they're interested, less childcare, maybe more vacation time. You might have vacation purchase programs where you can get more time for yourself. So the workforce is getting much more diverse in lots of different ways. Folks are working much longer, not because they have to, because they want to, right? So it's a really exciting time, especially for programs like that. We're working hard and fast to try to create them to meet this changing workforce. So do your job and get out there and read about them and participate in them. That way we get to keep them. When nobody looks at them and no one participates, then someone tries to cut my budget.
That is such an amazing point, Amy, when it comes to benefits. They always get cut if nobody uses them. And I think that leads us perfectly into our next question about support, and particularly around when we're talking about burnout or trauma. I know I just did a podcast on this recently because burnout is so key because people are working longer, they're working harder, especially being remote many times. It's hard to shut off when you're working in your home. So let's discuss how companies can support specific groups of returners. So how can organizations start to foster a positive work-life balance for employees returning to work, especially for those who've experienced some type of trauma or burnout?
So I'll jump in here. Kimberly, as you indicated, and actually everyone's indicated here, people take a break from work for various different reasons. And so organizations need to have an extremely disciplined approach in supporting those that come back through. I would say number one is onboarding checklist, making sure that, they're informed, they're set up correctly from day one. Second piece is a great and continuous interaction with not only your manager, but your HR team, ensuring whether it's benefits that the company offers or different organizations within the organization that are there to support them, that is happening. And that, again, that communication happens very continuously. I would say in today's world, since the pandemic, remote work is very critical in that work-life balance and reducing the commuting, but also just making folks feel more comfortable in a different work-life environment. One thing that Henry Schein and some other organizations have definitely adopted, and I think is wonderful, is you have your work team, and then you have these business, but at Henry Schein, it's employee resource groups. And they support many different employee types that are there. And with Henry Schein Women's Leadership Network, as well as the Veterans ERG. And so that is, I like to call, for myself specifically, it's my tribe. I feel comfortable having the conversations and thinking through solutions of what else can we provide employees that align to these different aspects or these different employee resource groups that aren't in existence today. And it's, again, employee engagement, but also retention. It makes a much happier workplace environment. So
100%, Holly. Those employee resource groups, they are the support that even I'm in them too. So they're the support that I need sometimes when I'm looking for just that extra piece, that extra boost to my mental health during my workday, right? You can find those like-minded people that are really part of what you said, that tribe. And that kind of segues into how I would have answered the trauma and burnout question, because I believe that all companies should start by making mental health issues non-issues. Offer clear resources as a company like those employee resource groups, but also, guys, there is a world of apps out there. Encourage the company to look into something that can be offered to everyone at the company for ongoing resources. I believe at Achieve we have Talkspace, and we have Ginger, and we have all of these other, we've got, our good apps for financial stuff and money left over and all these kinds of different types of apps that are available, because that's the kind of world that we're in right now. So make sure that your resources are user friendly, that they're up to date, and that they're effective. Especially important when, as Amy was saying earlier, when employees are trying to use them, they're probably already in crisis. Don't make that difficult to navigate for them when the thought process may not quite be linear at the time that they need to be able to use them. People experiencing trauma and burnout, They don't want special accommodations. That's not what they're looking for. They want the resources that will prevent ongoing concerns. So part of that return to work anxiety after trauma and after burnout is the concept of, will I experience this at XYZ company like all over again? And it's a feeling of dread. It's a feeling of being stuck. And then what? And then what will I do? Or where will I turn? And those open conversations and a desire to want to make things better for your advocates will go a long way to employee retention. And I know that there had been a bunch of questions kind of out in the group about ageism. And I think that plays into the trauma and the burnout, right? Because people assume that once you've been in the workplace for so long, that you're going to get to a point of burnout a whole lot faster, especially if you have a company that is more tech advanced, or you have a company that has more complex situations and scenarios. In those instances, I say address it open. Walk in there with your head held high, no matter what age you are, and tell them why you are the perfect fit for that job. Walk in there and say, look, I'm not in danger of burning out. This is my jam. This is where I want to be, right? This is what I know how to do. I have spent X number of years, 30, 40 years of my life preparing for this very thing, for this job, for this moving forward, this opportunity. And you'll have a lot more respect for just from your future employer for stepping up and saying, hey, yeah, I know I got some age behind me, but with that age comes wisdom. And here's what I bring to the table.
I love that. I love that. And I think, again, earlier when Amy mentioned, make sure you use the benefits. If you are currently in a job experiencing trauma or burnout and need time off, I think a lot of people don't know the benefits their company currently has to help you, where you don't necessarily need to quit and resign and figure it out later in return. There could be benefits available to you right now where you can return into your same job. Every company is a little bit different, but this is another call to action to, if you're feeling burnt out right now, go look at the benefits you currently have. You may have more options than you think you do. So now we are going to switch gears, and I know we are going to kick this question off with Hallie. What about the veterans? How can organizations support veterans as they're reintegrating into civilian workforce after serving in the military?
Yes, I'm actually going to answer this twofold. So from the veteran perspective, if you're not familiar, a lot of the veterans, I think it's the Veterans Jobs Coalition, kicked off back in 2011. And it's a coalition of organizations that have committed to hire veterans. So there's a ton of resources there, not only for veterans, but it also outlines a bunch of organizations, not all of them, but there's a ton there for at least a starting point. It also helps identify some different resources about building your resume and how to translate those skills from military experience to whatever industry that you're focused on. The second aspect for organizations is, and I think organizations have come a long way. I do think ERGs and business resource groups play a big part in that. And I can just give examples from most recently, Henry Schein launched their Veterans ERG this past September. And one of our key priorities is creating a managerial toolkit of how to identify, if they do get a military resume, what do those skills mean? If they haven't already been translated, what does that mean? And how can I support that individual as they're coming into the organization? I think it's critical. I know there's a big issue with retention and finding the right seat for that veteran coming into the organization, and that's across many different industries. But that's a big one. Not only that, having the resource group there, partnering somebody with a mentor as they come in. Again, it's a completely different way of life, and making sure that they feel comfortable and confident in the skills that they have developed in the military. And a lot of those soft skills, organizations have realized that the soft skills that are developed in the military can fill so many aspects and gaps that are currently there in corporate America.
1,000%. It's those soft skills, like we talked about at the very beginning too, Hallie, that we have to be on the lookout for with our military service members and veterans that are coming to the workforce. I'm looking for things like autonomy and adaptability, resiliency. Those are all things that are usually top of the list for some of those, for some of our integrating military service members and veterans. And service members and veterans do find strength in those employee resource groups, because they find the strength in that bond, in that brothers and sisters type of mentality. But they need that support too from allies who respect and celebrate their uniqueness. So it does give you a really good blend of those two that helps to build the culture even within your company. Companies should encourage participation in those employee resource groups, but need to understand that veterans are not always the first to step up and say, I need fill in the blank. So we need to be anticipatory, right? We need to be inclusive. Over 1/2 of all of our veterans are struggling to connect in civilian life. And those that struggle tend toward negative coping, which are resulting in those recent numbers from Operation Deep Dive, which depicts that 44 veterans a day are actually dying by suicide and self-injury through destructive behaviors. So we as companies need to be willing to ask for help. We preach this to our advocates, our employees all the time, but we need to take our own advice. So gain insight from people that are skilled in battlefield to the boardroom etiquette. As a company, you have to lean into your battle buddies, right? Companies like Vanguard Veteran that can help with military inclusivity. So if you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. But find people who do and have them help you to integrate and work better with your military service members and veterans.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. From battlefield to the boardroom, like we need support the whole entire way. So now we're going to talk a little bit about current events. Every single day, we are seeing more headlines about organizations that have recently experienced layoffs. How can companies best support their employees who have been laid off, both in terms of our financial well-being and also in their mental health?
So I'll take that one. And I want to do a quick little advertisement for what we call in the business EAP programs, employee assistance programs. Now, these have traditionally been around for a long time and something that you would contact for a counselor if you were in crisis for some reason. Absolutely should not use them just for near crisis. They are great programs that help with, there's a problem with access to mental health professionals around the world. EAP programs are generally global. So no matter where you're sitting in your company, you might be able to access them. They are generally free sessions, so you don't have a copay. And you can have anywhere between 3 free ones to 28 free ones, depending on the design from your company. I love EAP because for me, I use it for things like, because I've given talks like these and never picked up the call once. And I was heading to a family dinner and I was dreading it because of conversations that I don't know how to handle. And 3 conversations with an EAP professional, I had tools, I had the anxiety gone, I had the pressure gone. They're fabulous. So if you have an EAP program and you're not using it, use it today. So that's my first. Second is layoffs. Yes, they sound awful and scary. Do not panic. I am in HR. I have been laid off more times than I can count. I'm a cost center, not a profit center. So when the budget needs to get cut, it's usually someone in HR who will get cut. If you don't panic as you go through the program, take that first notice day to yourself. Don't try to think through it. Don't try to solve the problem. Take it to absorb it, and then come back with a fresh look of, okay, I've got a new purpose now. I can look for a position in the current company I'm at. You usually have a window of time to do that. You usually have benefits that go with the layoff. Make sure you understand what they all are. Some come with retraining, some come with education, some come with extension of your benefit healthcare, which is very important while you're looking. But get to know all of that. Give yourself the time to do that. And then go right back to the beginning, which we talked about. Get your LinkedIn updated. Get your networks updated. And you will most likely land before your benefits end out. The benefit packages are designed to be able to bridge you to the new job. So keep that upward movement. Don't take it personally. Now, that said, it can be very jarring. It can be a very scary experience. Contact EAP. They are fabulous about these types of things. They will help you make the step forward. They will help you mourn the loss of what you thought you would be able to do in the old role that you won't be able to do going forward. It's a really important time for you to care about your own mental health, and that will give your family and the people around you who are trying to support you through that some comfort as well. So, like I said, it's going to happen to somebody at some point. Don't take it personally. It's always a business decision. It may not feel like it, but it's always the business decision. Did I scare everybody?
No, not at all. Hallie, did you have something you wanted to add here? Oop, you're on mute.
Amy, I mean, that was phenomenal insight. I'm just going to add a piece on the aspect from a veteran standpoint. There's a lot of resources out there. Again, I'm going to go back to the Veterans Jobs Coalition and all the organizations that have committed to hiring veterans, but they also have established programs that are free of charge. And just a few examples, Salesforce Military, if you're looking to get into tech, they have so many certifications, not only for veterans, but their spouses, to get trained up and prepare you from an interview perspective of landing a tech position. Another one is the Syracuse Military Institute. Again, a bunch of certifications like your PMP and vast majority more. But again, for not only veterans, but their spouses, in an effort to help you excel in your career, but also set you up for a position that you might be going after. Whether, again, you just were laid off and or looking for that next move. So
thank you so much. So we have about 15 minutes left, and we want to make sure we can get to your questions. So make sure you put your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring it. But before we go to your questions, do any of our panelists have a personal experience with returnship that you'd like to share? And what is that one piece of advice that you wish you knew returning back to the workforce?
So I have actually had some very interesting return to works because I've held very many diverse types of jobs that seemed to be kind of domino affecting for a little while in my life. I ended up being a franchise manager for some franchises that ended up closing. Like the owners just decided, we're done with this. It's not in the cards, or the lease is up, or whatever the case may be. And then switched over and was working for an attorney's office, and it was a sole proprietorship. And unfortunately, the attorney died. And so there's not really anyone left there to work for, right? So like you constantly like have to be looking and searching for another job. And I got to a point where I was like, can I not stay in anything for more than a year? And you get frustrated, and you get to a point where you're like, why am I even doing this? I'm only going to be here for a minute. And then you get that feeling like you're going to put in just one toe, right? You're not going to push as hard because what if you're going to be gone again? And so it was a big deal to me when I had people who came to me about Achieve and the culture that was at this particular company. And I realized, I was like, that's what I want. Like, I want somebody who's been around for a while, and I want to be someplace where I can stay for a while. And so when I went into my interview, I was like, please tell me you guys aren't going anywhere. So what I have to tell you guys is my pro tip is interviews are a two-way street. Interview the job just as much as that job is interviewing you. Do not be afraid to ask for what you need. When I went in there, I said, tell me how I know that you are going to be here to develop and support me long enough to make this a career and not just another job. And thank goodness that those hiring managers at the time had answers for me, because I've now been with the company for 6 years and I have no intention of moving anywhere. But thank goodness, because I needed to ask that question for my own mental well-being.
I can go. I'll jump in.
Go ahead before we go to questions.
I have just two aspects. So if I was nugget of advice is if you're starting with a new organization or reentering, be proactive. So don't just wait for somebody to come help and hold your hand through the entire process. If you have a question, reach out. If you don't get a response and you still have that question, pick up the phone, set up a meeting, and get those answers until you have it. The second piece, my second nugget, is goes back to relationships. So those amongst the team and those that you work with, but feel free to reach out and educate yourself on what the organization is doing from a higher level perspective, and give yourself some great situational awareness of some meet and greets with those in your organization that you might not have met, but you're interested to figure out what they're doing as a team and how that could relate to what you might be doing. That goes to, again, just reentering the workforce, or if you've been in the organization for a while and you're looking for a change or something else you might be interested in, that can happen at any point in your career.
And I'd just add, when you're coming back from break, I know when I came back, I took some time with the family. I came back in a role that wasn't my dream job, but I know it was the role that got me back and got me into the area I wanted to be in. And, it was a tough transition. Listen, it wasn't my best work. It was tough to get the kids going. It was tough to get me going. But I had learned more about myself in that role than I have in any other role. So don't be afraid that even if it's not the perfect fit, if it's the right fit for that moment, you will still learn from it. So get in there, do the best you can. And, if you need to transition to something else, keep your eyes open.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have so many questions that are pouring in. And I love that some of you are even answering your own questions in the chat for each other. So it is much appreciated, because I know we won't be able to get to everything. But we did see a lot about ageism. So we have a question that I want to address that I think would help us talk about ageism as a whole. So how do you return to the corporate environment again in your 60s after having such a significant break from the industry? This particular person said they did not leave for caretaking. They own their own business and they're having trouble re-entering and finding opportunities now. Any advice for them?
So I'll jump in there. I love this topic. I think it's a renaissance of folks coming back in with different skills, right? So you can't necessarily expect to come back in at the same level that you left at. You have to be open to starting in a different place and doing something new. And even if it is the same area, you have to be open to doing it in a new way. That's going to be your biggest concern for folks, that they would be afraid that you were stuck in a pattern from a previous employer or previous style. The workplace is changing at light speed, right? That's a very Pfizer word, but it is changing so fast for even the people who are here, that you have to show that you're adaptable. And I will tell you that it is the norm, that everything that we're looking at for hires, the older hires is the norm these days. So don't feel as though it might feel more for you that it's an oddity than it is for the recruiter. They could probably be talking to folks in your age group all the time. But that openness and that willingness to try new things, to see new things, and some excitement, working to 70 is going to be the norm from now on. And it's actually healthier for you, right? The longer we work, the healthier we are through our aging process, because it keeps us engaged. It keeps you excited, all those things. So stop thinking of it as, oh, I had to, and thinking about it as, oh, I get to, and I can't wait to show these people what I've got.
I'm going to come at that question from a different angle. I like to think I'm still relatively young, but my best advice is that it's the goals you set for yourself. People have a different pace. Everyone has a different pace and the goals they have in life. I'm still in the stage of life that I want to excel as fast as possible. So I determine what those different targets are. And if I'm going into a workplace, I have, got the reaction of, you're young. How do you have the experience to accomplish this? And it goes back to the foundational skills that anyone develops in any role, because those can be transferable. You can learn any product, you can learn any service, you can learn sales skills, but depending on what that employer might be looking for in that position, it's all about the foundational skills that you need to hone in on. And especially in that interview of, this is why I'm right for this job, and I'll show you. So
Thank you. Thank you. So we have another question that came that I think is really interesting that I hear a lot. So someone said, how would you advise someone with experience gaps and who does not have any connections? Because we did touch on relationships quite a bit. So you're missing the experience and you're missing the connections and trying to land a new job.
I think it's the honesty that Amy was talking about. Just know your reasons, know why you stepped away. And it doesn't matter if it was a mental health issue. It doesn't matter if it was a medical issue. It doesn't matter what your reason is, as long as you have a reason for yourself. And that doesn't mean like the societal, like this is an acceptable reason. It's just know what your reason is and be able to articulate it. Like you were saying, Kimberly, like say it to yourself 100 times, like make it part of your normal dialogue and practice it on somebody that like may even be like an acquaintance or someone that you don't like share or confide in often, and just be like, does it sound weird if I say this? Like use the people that you do know, because they'll be quick to tell you. They'll be quick to tell you, yeah, I don't think I'd say it like that. Get some input from them. What would you look for? What would you want to hear if you were on the other end?
I'll jump in here. If you don't feel like you have the experience and you don't have those relationships, nothing is preventing you from starting that network today. And a lot of that, comes with humility and being comfortable saying, this is what I want to try. Can you help me? How do I go about doing this? Align yourself with somebody that does have that experience and network, and be vulnerable and ask them for assistance, but be ready to put in the work. Because if they're going to spend time on you, you need to put the investment on the other side.
I love that. And I would challenge anyone who says that they don't have the relationships to know you do have the relationships. You just haven't activated your network yet. If you've had previous work experience, if you've been volunteering places, doing anything besides just staying home, you have relationships that you can reach out to. It's about activating them and having someone help you create your career plan to make your next move. I think many times we're just afraid to ask, especially when we feel like we may not have anything to give. There was this old stigma back in the day that said, whenever you wanted to build relationships, they had to be mutually beneficial. And I think we grilled that as career coaches back in the day. But I think the reality is sometimes it's not mutually beneficial. Sometimes the only thing you're going to be able to provide is taking the advice, actioning it, landing that job so that mentor or sponsor can be super proud of you. And that is okay. So don't be afraid to reach out to people who you may not have spoken to have that reintroductory coffee chat to get things going. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And I have a question here about ERGs. So how do you approach your company about creating a culture that makes time for ERG participation? So some companies may have employee resource groups, business resource groups, affinity groups. There's lots of names for them. So many companies are working so lean that you barely have time to do your job, let alone the time or mental space to get involved. So how do you advocate for that?
Most companies are going to have some form of focus group. And if they don't, they should be. Take the time to listen to what your employees are telling you. And if across the board, the employees are saying, great that you have these resources, but I don't have the time to use them, then you have a responsibility as a company to step up and say, how do we get them the time that they need to build that culture that we want? So it has to be, like Hallie was saying, align with the goals of the org, right? Know what your goal is. Ask the company if that's in their goal as well. Like, do you have ERGs just because you want something to talk about in Slack channels? Or do you want them because they're actionable and you can make a difference in your community? And the people that are on your floor at work have opportunity to use those the way they were meant to be used.
And I'll jump in there and say that most companies do have ERGs of some sort. So look for them if you haven't. They are usually pretty good about calendaring out the meetings and the different activities that they're going to do so that you can fit it into your work schedule if you have the flexibility. If you're on a manufacturing line, sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, but generally they're good at calendaring that out. And when I hear folks saying, I don't have the time or I don't have the energy, some of those programs, if they're the right programs for you, will give you back energy, will make you more engaged, will make you a more communicative colleague in your company, and it's time well worth spent. I know I get on my calendar and I go, I can't make it today. And that's wrong, right? You got to make the time because it will bring you back in. It'll make you a better person to work with. So keep it on there, get that calendar on, and keep it on as much as you can.
I'll just say that, I mean, ERGs and BRGs are in existence because they have proven a positive track record, right? So, and that's why companies do allocate budget to it. But I know I hit on earlier retention. There's a cost associated there. For those, you know, on this this chat, it's you get what you put into it as well. So that, you know, those that run the ERG, they have typically it's volunteered. So it's a higher purpose they have. There's a lot of passion there. And it's really not only to support their community, but it's to support you. It's to support those that are part of the organization and setting you up for success. So I'm sure there's case studies to help support if your company is not doing that today. But again, they're in existence because they have such a positive track record.
Okay, thank you so much. We are right at time today, down to the moment. So Hallie, Karie, Amy, thank you. And everyone who joined us today for this discussion on strategies for returning to work. We hope that you receive tangible and actionable tips that you are going to be able to implement, especially if you are re-entering the workforce. And for the employers in the room also to create more inclusive and supportive work environments for all returners. Returning to work can be a challenging, daunting process, but with the right strategies and support, it can be a great opportunity for growth and advancement. With that, we thank you and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of Inspiration Summit.